Okay, so for this first question on checkpoint 26, we want to know what is the area of the triangle shown above? So before we can figure out what the area of this triangle is, we need to know what the area formula is for a triangle. Do you know what the area formula is of a triangle? Do you happen to know or remember what the area formula is for a triangle? So with this entire section, I would highly recommend writing them down somewhere. So whether that's like on a sticky note or on a piece of paper or having them even like in your phone in a note, because if you don't know the formula, then you can't solve these, right? Knowing the formula is the first step that you have to do or you have to know. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 your base times height. So area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And anytime you are given a slant height like this 18 here, this is not what we're paying attention to. They throw in these numbers to try and confuse you. Okay, the base of your triangle is always going to be the bottom, so that's 24, and your height of your triangle should always be a straight line. So the height of my triangle here is going to be 11. So all I need to do is plug in those numbers into my formula. So I have 1/2 times 24, which is my base, times 11, which is my height, and then type that into a calculator. So 1/2 times 24 times 11, which gives me 132. So my area is 132 units squared. So remember, your height is always a straight line. It's not at a slant, and your base is always going to be the bottom. Questions on this one, or are you okay? All right, next problem is this question talking about Randall making a tablecloth. Okay, so Randall's making a tablecloth for his dining room table, and the table is 6 feet long and 3 feet wide. He also wants the tablecloth to have two triangular sections that fall off the edge of the table. The triangle needs to be 3.5 feet wide and 1 foot tall. Okay, so on these questions, always draw a picture because it's easier for me to kind of know what's happening if I can envision what's happening. So if I don't draw a picture, I usually am pretty lost. So let's see, he's making a tablecloth. So here's his tablecloth. And it tells me that it is 6 feet long and 3.5 feet wide. And then he has these two triangles on the edges. So here's one triangle, and here's another triangle on the other side. It says that the triangles need to be 3.5 feet wide, which is the same. So this bottom side here is 3.5, and it needs to be 1 foot tall. So this here is 1 foot, which means this other side is also going to be 1 foot tall. So we want to know what's the area of this tablecloth. Well, we need to figure out the area of our shapes separately and then add them all together. So I have a rectangle and two triangles. So what would be the area formula for a rectangle? How do I find the area of my rectangle? Do you know what my formula would be for area of a rectangle? If you don't, it's okay. So what would I do with the 3.5 to find the area of my rectangle? And again, if you don't know or if you're confused, that's fine. Just let me know. It's okay, you're fine. So we need to figure out the area of our rectangle, which is the center part here. That's all this area here. The area formula for your rectangle is going to be base times height. Okay, so when I look here, my base is 6 and my height is 3.5. So I'm going to take 6 and multiply it by 3.5. So that's the area of this rectangle in the center. Now I need to figure out, well, what is the area of the rectangle, or sorry, of these triangles on the edges here? So do you remember from that previous problem what the area formula is for a triangle? One half. Perfect. That's the right start. And then I do 1/2 times what? One half base times base times height. Perfect. So when we are finding the area of our triangle, we need to be careful, okay, because this 6 on the top is attached to my rectangle, right? It's attached to the top of my rectangle, but nowhere on my triangles do I have a 6, right? On my triangles, I have a 1-foot height and I have a 3.5 base. So when I'm finding the height of my actual triangles, I should have 1/2 times 1 times 3.5. So 1/2 times 1 times 3.5. And then once we know what we're multiplying, we can just type it into a calculator. So 6 times 3.5 is going to give me my rectangle area. And I have 1/2 times 1 times 3.5, which is my triangle area. But be careful, because how many triangles do I have on my tablecloth here? I have 2, right? So when I'm adding all of my areas together to figure out how much total area I have, I would do this 21 plus 1.75 plus 1.75. And I'm adding in that 1.75 twice because I have those 2 triangles. So I have 21 plus 1.75 plus 1.75, which means that the total area of my tablecloth would be 24.5. That would be the total area of my tablecloth. All right. For this question, you got this answer correct. That has this kind of like almost upside down triangle. Do you want me to go over this one still, or are you okay with skipping it? All right. So next one, would be this next problem talking about Teresa creating a piece of art. All right, so Teresa created a piece of art by attaching a square plank to a triangular plank. Okay, so let's draw a picture of what's happening here. So she is creating this piece of art and she is attaching a square plank to a triangular plank. So here's my square and she's attaching this triangular plank somewhere. We don't really know. Say it's like that. It tells me that the square plank has a perimeter of 48 inches. Okay, so perimeter is all four sides added together. And since with squares, all four sides are the same, if I were to take 48 and divide it by 4, I would get 12. And this 12 is each of my sides. So that means this side is 12, this side's 12, this top side is 12, and this left side is 12. Okay, if I add all 4 of those together, I would get 48, which would be my perimeter. And then it says that the triangular plank has a base of 12 and of 6 inches. So here is my height of 6 and my base of 12. So it kind of tells us that the base is 12. Alrighty. And then we want to know how many square inches of paper does she need to cover this art piece? So we want to figure out the area. So we need to figure out the area of our square and the area of our triangle. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry. All right, so let's find our area of our square. When we find the area of a square, what formula would we want to use? We're finding area of a square. What two numbers would we multiply together? So that 6, is 6 anywhere attached to my square, or is the 6 attached to my triangle? The 6 is attached to the triangle, right? So I'm going to use that 6 to help me find the area of my triangle. But first, I want to figure out the area of my square. And the area of a square is the same exact formula as a rectangle. So area of a square would be base times height. So what two numbers would I want to use to find the area of my square? So I'd want to do 12 times what? Not 6. Remember, 6 is our triangle. So it's a square, so it's okay if I do 12 times 12, right? Because my base and my height are both 12. So to find the area of my square, I'd want to do 12 times 12, which would give me 144. So now let's look at the area of my triangle. So let's do triangle area. My formula would be 1/2 base times height. So I would have 1/2 times what times what? 1/2 times what times what? Six and 12. Perfect. Yep. So I'd have 1/2 times 6 times 12 And for this one, we can type that into a calculator. You can type all of these into a calculator if you'd like. So I'm going to type in 0.5 times 6 times 12, and we get 36. So the very last step here would be to add together our areas. So 144 plus 36, which would give me 180. So Teresa would need 180 square inches of paper to cover her art project. All right. Next one. So for 5, we're talking about Deanna. So for 5, we're talking about Deanna. All right, so Deanna is improving her yard's landscape by adding artificial grass to an area of the yard. She wants the space to cover a rectangle with a length of 20 feet and a width of 12 feet. And the grass comes in 24 by 24 panels. How many panels of artificial grass will she need to cover the area? Okay, so I see what's happening here. So we are given 2 different units, right? We have feet and inches. So we need to convert inches into feet, right? So do you know how many inches are in 1 foot? So there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Okay, so if I have 24 inches and I divide that by 12, right, I can type that into a calculator. 24 divided by 12. That will tell me that 24 inches is the same as having 2 feet. Okay, so 24 inches is the same as having 2 feet. So it's like these panels that the grass comes in, they are 2 feet by 2 feet wide. Okay, so let's keep that in mind, and then let's draw some pictures of what's happening here. So her garden that she wants to cover is 20 by 12. And each one of these panels is 2 feet by 2 feet. So what would be the area of her garden, the big rectangle up top here? What would be the area of her garden? Or what would I do to figure out what is the area of this garden up here? $12. What would I do with the 12? 12. So remember, area formula is base times height. So think back to what we did on the other problems. Let me write the formula for you. Base times height. So if my base is 20 and my height is 12, all I need to do is just multiply them, because that's what my formula is telling me to do here, is base times height. So all I would need to do is 20 times 12. And 20 times 12, if we were to type that into a calculator, we would get 240. So the total area of Deanna's yard is 240. So let's figure out, well, how much area does this small grass panel cover, right? I need to find the area of this 2 by 2 grass panel. And I'm going to do the same thing where I have my area is equal to my base times height. So based off of what we did on the top one, what two numbers would I multiply for this small panel, my small grass one that has a 2 by 2? 2 and 2, perfect, yep. So I would do 2 times 2, which would give me 4. So to figure out how many grass panels she would need, the next step would be to do division. So we are going to take her total area, which is 240. We are going to divide that by the area of one panel, which is 4. So 240 divided by 4, which gives me 60, which means she would need 60 grass panels to cover her yard. So she would need 60 grass panels. All right, number 6, we have a parallelogram ABCD, and we want to know what is the area of it. Okay, so when we look at this picture here, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. So we don't know what the area of a trapezoid, that's what this figure is. It's a trapezoid, it's kind of like a slanted rectangle. We don't know that area formula. However, we do know the area formula of a triangle and a square or rectangle. So if I were to take this picture and cut this part off on the end, I now have these two triangles on the edges and then that square in the middle. And this bottom portion 15, this from this spot all the way to this spot here, this is 15 centimeters. So that would be the base of my rectangle. And the height of my rectangle is this 8 centimeters here. So this would be what I would multiply the area of my rectangle in the center. And then to get the area of my triangle, remember area formula is 1/2 base times height. This 6 on the side over here, this 6 tells me the base of my rectangle, sorry, of my triangle, which would be, and the height of my triangle, which is the straight line, is 8. So let's pop this into our calculator to see what those areas are. So I have 15 times 8. This gives me 120. And then I have 1/2 times 6 times 8, which gives me 24. But remember to double check your image because yes, here's one triangle here, but then there's another triangle on this other side. And this triangle is going to be the same size as this one here. So when we are adding our areas together, we need to make sure that we add in this 24 2 times because we have two triangles. So I have 120 plus 24 plus 24, which gives me a total area of 168. So this parallelogram would have 168 centimeters squared. All right, do you have questions on this one or are you okay to go to the next one? Perfect. All right, number 7. So we have a triangle here and we want to know what is the approximate area in feet. Okay. So for this question, when we look at the numbers that we are given on that triangle, we have numbers in inches, right? However, we want to know what is the area in feet. So when we are given different units, we need to change our units before we start doing all of our multiplication. So do you remember how many inches are in 1 foot? Perfect. Yep. So there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So we need to take these two numbers that we have, this 48 and this 39, and we need to divide both by 12 to give us what those units would be in feet. So let's take that 48 and divide it by 12 and 39 and divide it by 12. So this 48 feet, this 48 inches, you can tell it's a Monday. This 48 inches is going to turn into 4 feet. And this 39 inches is going to turn into 3.25 feet. All right, so now we have our units in feet, which is good because that's what our answer wants. So all we have to do now is plug them into our area formula. So remember, area of a triangle is going to be 1/2 base times height. So I'd have 1/2 times my base, which is 3.25, times my height, which is 4. And then we can type this into a calculator. So 1/2 times 3.25 times 4, which gives me 6.5. So the area of this triangle in feet is going to be 6.5 feet. All right, next one. Next one is 8. And on 8, we have a parallelogram that has a base of 5 centimeters and a height of 12 centimeters, and it is stacked on top of a square. So we need to figure out if what Hannah did to solve this is correct. See, so this parallelogram, which is another way of saying like a rectangle's parallelogram, it has a base of 5 and a height of 12. So let's draw this. So base of 5 and height of 12. My picture doesn't look exactly right, but it's okay. And it's stacked on top of a square with a side length of 5. So that means we have the square underneath it. And since it's a square, all the sides are 5. So it says that Hannah calculates the area of the parallelogram by multiplying the base and height. So that's this first part up here that Hannah's doing first. So she's doing 5 times 12. And she gets 60, which is correct. 5 times 12 would give us. Then she divides by 2 to get 30. And then she's multiplying the side lengths of the square by itself, so 5 times 5. Okay, so 5 times 5 is correct. That's the area of this square here, which would give us 25. But it looks like once she found this 60 centimeters here, she then divided it by 2. And when you divide it by 2, you're finding the area of a triangle, not a rectangle. So she did not find the area of the parallelogram correctly because she was perfect, and then she did one extra step that she didn't have to do. So the area of the square that she found was also fine, but it's the area of that parallelogram that she got confused on a little bit. So she incorrectly calculated the area of the parallelogram. All right, number 9. So this is another one that has a purple figure. And on this one, you got this answer correct with that 7 times 8, and then you're adding it to 1/2 times 3 times 3. Do you want to go over this one, or are you okay with skipping it? So yes to go over or yes to skip? Okay. Number 10, 10th question. All right, on number 10, we have Alicia, and Alicia needs to purchase carpet to cover a triangular space. So Alicia needs to cover carpet to, or she needs to purchase carpet to cover a triangular space. So I'm going to draw a triangle, because we're talking about a triangle here. It says that the space has a base of 10 feet. So base is the bottom. And it has a height of 6.4 feet. So the height of my triangle here is 6.4. And we want to know how many square feet of carpet does Alicia need to cover her space? So on this one, you were actually almost, you were almost close on this one. I think I could kind of see what you were doing. So remember that when we are finding area, we should know our formula. Area is 1/2 base times height for a triangle. So I would have 1/2 times my base, which is 10, times my height, which is 6.4. And let's type this into a calculator. And we should get 32. So the area that is needed, or how many feet of carpet she needs, is 32 feet. "32 feet of carpet." All right, next one. Number 11 is talking about Girard. Okay, so Girard is calculating the area of a composite figure. A composite figure just means two shapes that are kind of smushed together. And it says that it is made up of a square. So here's my square with side lengths of 6 centimeters. So this is 6 and this is 6. And then it has a triangle with a base of 6 and a height of 3.5. So my base of my triangle is 6 and my height is going to be 3.5. And Girard multiplies 6 times 3.5 to get the area of the figure. And he says it's 21 centimeters, which is not the correct area. So we want to know, what should he have done instead to find the correct answer? Well, he needs to first find the area of this square on the bottom, right? The area of my square is my base times height. And since it's a square, I should multiply the same number twice, because squares have all of the same sides. So 6 times 6 would give me 36. And then I'd need to find the area of my triangle, which is 1/2 base times height. So I would have 1/2 times 6 times 3.5. And we can pop that into a calculator. So 36, oops, nope, not the 36, 1/2 times 6 times 3.5 which gives me 10.5. And then we need to add them together. So 36 plus 10.5 gives me 46.5. So the correct area is going to be, he should have found that the area of the square first, and then added it to the area of the triangle, which is 10.5. When you add both of them together, you get 46.5 centimeters squared. Alrighty. 12. 12 is talking about Megan. Let me grab some clean space here. So on the 12th question, says that Megan is calculating the area of a composite figure, and the figure is made up of a rectangle with the base of 4 and a height of 10, and a triangle with the base of 4 and a height of 10. And then she wants to find the area of the rectangle by multiplying 4 and 10 to get 40 square units. Then she finds the area of the triangles. She adds them together. So see, she has this rectangle with a triangle on top. The height of the triangle is 10. We have 4 and 10 over here. So she multiplied 4 times 10 to get the area of her rectangle here, which is 40. That's correct. And then remember that when you're finding the area of your triangle, it's 1/2 base times height. So when we take that 1/2, multiply it by 4 times 10, 4 times 10 is 40, and half of 40 would be 20. So it looks like when she was finding the area of her triangles, she forgot to divide it by 2 or multiply it by that 1/2. So she made a mistake when she was calculating the area of her triangle. So she made her mistake when she was calculating the area of her triangle. All right, 13. So 13, we have this figure here that has a smaller rectangle inside of a much bigger rectangle. So we have this rectangle window. So the window is the small rectangle inside, and it is 5 feet by 2 feet. And it's on this really big wall. So the wall is 9 feet by 18 feet. And the rest of the wall needs to be painted, but not the window, because we don't paint over windows. And we want to know approximately how many square feet of wall needs to be painted. So the easiest way to do this problem is to find the area of both of those rectangles and then subtract them. So let's do the area of this small rectangle first. So this 5 feet by 2 feet one that I'm highlighting in red here. What would be the area of that small rectangle? What two numbers would I multiply together to find the area of that small rectangle? 5 and 2, perfect. So 2 times 5 would give me 10. And then what two numbers would I want to multiply together to find the area of my big rectangle here? 18 and 9, perfect, yep. And let's pop that into a calculator. This would give me 162. And then to figure out what we would have to paint, we don't want to paint the area of that window, so let's take it out. So we have 162 minus 10, which would give me 152. So the square feet of the wall that needs to be painted would be 152 square feet. All right, and then we have two more questions. All right, so 14, we have this triangle figure, not triangle, orange figure here. There is a triangle in it though. I see a rectangle and I also see a triangle. And we need to figure out what is the area. So I first need to figure out the area of my rectangle, and then I need to figure out the area of my triangle. So the area of my rectangle, if I look at this part here, so it looks like my base is 7. So if this 13 on the bottom, these lines tell me that this 13 is the length of this entire bottom section here, meaning that it is covering this small section of my rectangle and my triangle. So when I'm finding the area of my rectangle, I don't want to use this 13 because that's everything. However, this 7 goes from the starting point to the ending point of just my rectangle. So when I find the area of it, I want to use that 7 and 8, which will give me 56. And then to figure out the base here for my triangle, well, I know that this whole segment here is 13. And up to this point, if I were to take this to here, this would be 7. So if I know that the whole segment is 13 and this small portion is 7, what would I do to figure out what this section is here? I'd have to have 7 plus some number, which would equal 13. So 7 plus what number would give me 13? 6, perfect, yep. So that means that the bottom section here of this triangle is going to be 6. So that means my base is 6. And my height, remember, you want to use a straight up and down. My height of my triangle is going to be 8. And don't forget to multiply that by 1/2. So this would be 1/2 times 48, which would give me, divide 48 by 2, 24. And then the very last step would be to add our areas together. So 56 plus 24. And when I add them together, I get 80. The final answer here would be 80. The area of this composite figure is 80 units squared. But you can just type in units. Or sorry, you can just type in the 80. You don't need to type in units squared. All right. And then very last question. So we want to calculate the area of a rectangle with a base of 12 feet and a height of 3 feet. So when we're calculating area of a rectangle, we want to do base times height. And I know what both of those numbers are here. So what would I do to figure out the area of this rectangle? Perfect. Yep. So when I do 12 times 3, that base times height, I will get 36 square feet. Awesome.